The Dr. Taz Show, the podcast. Dr. Taz, your good health journey starts now. Here's Dr. Taz.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Taz, and this is my podcast. Today, I am honored and excited to have Dr. Kogan, a Cornell University graduate, join me. She practices holistic and integrative medicine at her clinic in New York City. She's the author of Diet Slave No More, which is a fun literary journey into yourself, offering readers a brand new approach to healthy living and to handling weight issues. Welcome, Dr. Kogan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taz, for having me. I'm privileged to be here.
I am excited to have you. And, in reading your bio and just going over some of what you've been doing, I know we're very similar. It looks like we both approach medicine and approach health in general with both an Eastern and kind of Western mindset.
Yes.
I'm curious, just more from a collegial standpoint, kind of what sort of Eastern modalities do you use the most in your practice, and what have you noticed most effective in your practice?
Surely. My Eastern modalities range from meditative visualization, Ayurvedic medicine, to breathing techniques. We use a lot of Ayurvedic herbology. I use hypnotherapy extensively. And lately, we use a lot of electromagnetic pulsations, music therapy, sound therapy. Actually, last night we were featured on CBS National News with our latest research on how music affects the mind. So it's all very
fascinating.
Exciting. Yes.
Yeah, fascinating. I'm so proud of that. I love to definitely talk to like-minded colleagues.
Absolutely.
Well, today we're going to spend a few minutes talking about female hormones and stress. And I know I live in this world with my patients and even personally, and I'm sure you do as well.
Same here.
I know, and I'm interested to kind of see what your perspective is on that topic. I know women today, are stressed, and we do more than we did even a generation ago. We have more on our plate, but many women and all the doing just simply don't understand the effect it may be having on our body. And at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, we are hormonal creatures. So in your experience, how do you see stress affecting female hormones?
That's a great question. And I think to approach it broadly, we should first explain to our listeners just what happens inside our mind-body when we're stressed. Everything that we see or hear or touch or smell gets in through the five senses that we possess. And it gets assigned a little category by our mind. Is it fun or is it stressful? For example, if we smell fire, the fire certainly gets categorized as a stressful stimulus by the mind. Or if we hear good pop music, the sound gets labeled as fun. If we taste the food, for example, that we like, the taste is, once again, categorized either fun or stressful. So at this point, once the stimulus has entered, a bunch of the biochemical reactions get started. And they start producing these neurotransmitters. And as we all know, the formula of happiness has been discovered a long time ago. There are certain neurotransmitters that control positive emotions and vice versa. There are some inhibitory peptides which make us sad. So the next thing that happens is that our analytical mind kicks in. So now that we know if it's stressful or not stressful, the analytical mind starts taking it further and deeper. And it starts analyzing what kind of happy stimulus or what kind of sad stimulus. In our case, what kind of stressful stimulus is it? What is it associated with? What kind of life experience that we personally lived through can we use to analyze it? And to demonstrate these very complicated neurological things, maybe what I'll do is I'll ask our listeners to perhaps get a hold of a picture of a baby lying around, or perhaps a picture of a child who is now an adult, but when they were a baby, or perhaps a photo of a pet, or anything little and cute. So I'm going to
for all
give
of
our
you
listeners a chance to grab a photo. And I think it's definitely worth waiting a couple of seconds for, because you will demonstrate my point. So
okay, guys, so Dr. Kogan wants you guys to grab a photo of either a baby, a pet. Is it just basically something that's nearby that you can start to take a look at? And I think she's going to walk us through an interesting exercise.
Super. So let's say, and what I'm doing right now is actually I'm picking up a photo of my now 6 years old when he was 2 years old. So look at your adorable, special someone at this photo and take a note of the feeling that you're instantly experiencing. It's very, very positive, right?
Definitely.
Now, absolutely, right? So let our mind analyze as you start remembering some very personal circumstances surrounding this photo. Perhaps you were on vacation when it was taken, or maybe, you're thinking about how happy of a family you were at the time the photo was taken, or some kind of a holiday or associated with it. Maybe you miss those days. Maybe you think of them wistfully. So the answers to all of these questions will pass through your mind in a fraction of a second, and your emotions will acquire dimensions and colors and shades. And it's, of course, very, very personal for all of us, what we're feeling when we're looking at our photos of our cute little ones. Now, of course, the hormones get involved here, and all of our female hormones, including estradiol and estrogen and estriol and progesterone, all of the ratios of the female hormones get optimized according to the degree of emotion triggered by the stimulus, in this case, the picture. But what if I told you to recall something very stressful, like 9/11, for example? Immediately the switch goes on in our brain to a negative kind of feeling, sensation, emotion. Any and all sad stimuli, sad thoughts will trigger a negative biochemical cascade. And that, of course, will result in the hormonal ratios, which are unbalanced. And as a result of that, we are looking at disrupted menstrual cycles chronically, rocky menopause symptoms. One of the reasons.
Dr. Kogan.
Yes, my dear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me stop you for just a second. So.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Please stop me, because if you don't stop me, I can just go on and on.
I understand. I'm the same way. But for many, what I really want listeners to understand and even feel in this exercise that you're walking all of us through is that how we feel, what we think, what we experience is not just triggering stress. And I think stress is a generic word that gets overplayed a lot, but it's down to the biochemical level where we as women, our estrogen levels get affected, our progesterone levels get affected. And when, we see something happy, it gets affected in a good way. But when you have a negative memory or something negative coming up over and over again, it gets affected in a bad way. Do I have that right for everybody kind of listening out there?
Absolutely, Dr. Taz. And that's very important for women to understand, because now they can connect their inner tool, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, to empower themselves to handle stressful situations.
More with Dr. Taz coming up. All right, my health-seeking friends, we know you want to be healthier, and that starts with eating better, but with not enough hours in the day, it can be difficult to cook a healthy meal every night. Not to mention you've probably tried before with good intentions, but have slipped back into old eating habits. Well, don't beat yourself up. We know it's hard. That's why I want to tell you about Sun Basket. Organic and sustainable ingredients and delicious recipes delivered weekly to your door. With Sun Basket, it's easy to stay on track. And today you can get $35 off your first order when you go to sunbasket.com/whole health. Now, the people at Sunbasket have been kind enough to send me a couple of boxes. So what have I made? The chorizo chili is unreal. The Tuscan vegetable soup on a cold day is just what the doctor ordered. The 2-bean enchiladas are delicious, and the Saigon beef sliders are fast, easy, and so good. Now imagine the ingredients and recipes being delivered to your door without the time it takes to shop. And I got to tell you, it's exciting when you get that box and you take it off the stoop and bring it inside and it open up in the kitchen. It's really a lot of fun. And best of all, each delicious, easy recipe is ready in about 30 minutes. With Sunbasket, you have total flexibility. You can cancel at any time, skip any time, and choose any meal plan you want. Just go to sunbasket.com/wholehealth today to learn more and get $35 off your first order. That's sunbasket.com/wholehealth for $35 off. sunbasket.com/wholehealth. Dr. Taz is also brought to you by Health IQ, an insurance company that helps health-conscious people like runners, cyclists, weightlifters, and vegetarians get lower rates on their life insurance. Yeah, I'm not kidding about this. Pretty cool. Health IQ can save you up to 33% because physically active people have a 56% lower risk of heart disease, 20% lower risk of cancer, and a 58% lower risk of diabetes compared to people who are inactive. And these savings are exclusive to Health IQ. Now, you have to qualify by taking a Health IQ quiz or other lifestyle quizzes like the Cycling IQ or Running IQ quiz. You can also get additional savings by submitting actual data such as race results. And Health IQ doesn't just take this info and pass it on to an insurer. They are with you every step of the way from interest to application through underwriting to the final policy enforcement. Yeah, pretty cool. Now, by being healthy, you not only live a better life, but now you can pay less for life insurance. To see if you qualify, get your free quote today at healthiq.com/Taz, that's T-A-Z, or mention the promo code Taz, T-A-Z, once again, when you talk to a Health IQ agent. Once again, check it out online at healthiq.com/Taz. And now back to the Dr. Taz Show.
I know you've experienced it. I know I've experienced it. I mean, how many cases have I seen or you've seen where, someone develops breast cancer or endometriosis or they have infertility? And often those things are after major life events, after a loss or after a divorce or after an extremely stressful period of time like graduate school or medical school or things like that. So, we see it day in and day out for, in our female patients, we see it all the time. And I always tell patients, and I'll do a timeline in my exam rooms and I'll kind of chart things out as to when they got a diagnosis, when they got symptoms. And then I always ask this question, and it always plays out that what happened 6 months prior? What was going on? What happened a year prior? And when you do those timelines, invariably you'll see that anywhere from 6 months to a year prior is when a woman experienced something either traumatic or highly, highly stressful that then showed itself as a symptom or as a disease so many months later. And I'm sure you see that all the time as well.
Absolutely. And this is what sets us apart as integrative practitioners, Dr. Taz, that we actually take the time to look into these underlying roots of the problem, instead of just going to the quick fix, such as medication.
Right. Really trying to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Now, as women go through life, and being the hormonal creatures that we all are and are very proud of being, as you go through your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, then into your 50s and 60s, there are hormonal changes at every decade. How do those hormonal changes influence stress? Or is it fair to say necessarily that the younger you are, you handle stress better, and that the older you are, you don't? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. The younger we are, the more resilient we are. Mm-hmm. And partially this happens because our immune system is stronger. We have more eggs, we have more neurons, we have more of everything. As we age, of course, stress becomes more of a problem. And another reason why this takes place is because youthfulness is full of ignorant bliss. And as we become more experienced, when the stressful stimuli enter our mind, we're certainly looking for answers by searching through more scenarios, through all of our experiences that we have lived through. So as estrogen drops during our menopause, several things happen. Risk for heart disease increases several times. And if you add stress to the risk of heart disease, of course, you got a recipe for the heart attack or a stroke. So certainly exposing a perimenopausal or menopausal woman to stress will have more devastating effects than exposing a younger person to stress, let's say. And of course, this also applies to progesterone, because as we get closer to the perimenopause, the sadness, induced by the stress will be felt more profoundly because the levels of progesterone are just so low at that point. And so, yes, absolutely. As I've indicated in my book repeatedly, The Diet Slave No More, which is not a diet book actually, but more of a book dealing with inner coping mechanisms. As we get to the perimenopause, stress affects us more profoundly.
So it is true that as we pass through the decades, it's ironic, I think, that as we go through every decade, I feel like women almost are more stressed. You have the childbearing years, then the sandwich generation, then the era of responsibility as you get older. But our ability to manage that stress is directly affected by our declining estrogen and even progesterone levels. So that's the challenge I think a lot of women face today. What can they do? What would you tell, forget that, I'm a physician. What would you tell somebody like me that lives a little bit of a stressful life? Or what would you tell other women that are passing through these, decade transitions? Like, what is their best approach to balancing their hormones? I mean, everyone always has a question about hormone therapy and things like that. But, before we even get there, going back to how you described controlling your thoughts and controlling your emotions, where do we begin when we're trying to manage stress to make sure it really doesn't impact our estrogen and our progesterone levels?
Yes. And that's $1 million question, of course, because
you don't have a pill?
There are several answers to that. The quick fix pill sort of an answer would be to prescribe bioidentical hormones, which sometimes we do. It certainly does have time and place for some women who don't have any contraindications or family history and who can be closely monitored as a short-term solution. But of course, our heart and soul, doctor, lies in the holistic approach, which doesn't have anything to do with medication. And that's when our armamentarium definitely includes things like food and exercise and breathing and meditation. And I try to teach patients auto-hypnosis. I've referred to this several times in the book. There are certain exercises they can do at home for muscle relaxation and meditative visualization. And the idea is to empower women to understand the inner tools that they have inside that can restore them back to their natural balance and make them happy in the moment, make them happy during this wonderful, mature time of their life. So it's a pretty wide range of things. If you want me to expound on any of these, I'll be happy to.
Well, I would love, so I'm just thinking about the busy woman who's getting stressed, but maybe not recognizing that she's stressed or understanding that she's stressed and then not really knowing what to do about it. If you had to give them, 2 quick tips, first of all, how do you recognize that maybe stress is getting out of control? And then before we even have a conversation about bioidentical hormones or things like that, what are maybe 2 things that you tell your patients to do that you've seen to be incredibly effective in, again, triggering the happy response that you talked about, not the negative response, so that the body knows to react in an appropriate way?
Yes. So let's tackle the first part of your question, Dr. Taz. How do we know that we are stressed? The very easy way to define this condition is to look at your sleep patterns. Are you tossing and turning at night and missing out on sleep? Are you perspiring during the day, having palpitations? Is your blood pressure going up? Is your pulse high most of the time? Are you a little short of breath and nervous and anxious? All of those things are pointing to stress getting the best of you. So if you are feeling any of those things, and let's say you're my patient, you're coming in and we went through a very, very thorough assessment of what's been happening to you and the biopsychosocial factors of your life. Then I usually do two quick fixes that we can undertake immediately, is to teach the patient to breathe. And one of the wonderfully easy breathing techniques is to put, if you're having a stress attack, what you can do is you can put the tip of your tongue behind the upper teeth. Close your eyes. If our listeners can follow us right now, that would be great. Put the tongue behind the upper teeth and close your eyes. Take a deep breath through your nose on the count of 4. Hold it in on the count of 4. And exhale through your mouth on the count of 8.
So
all
that's
the while
4,
holding
4,
the tip of the tongue
8.
behind the upper teeth.
So 4, 4, 8. Do we have that right? So
Yes.
breathe in for
Yes,
4, hold for 4, open your mouth and blow out for 8.
Right. And now let's repeat this cycle while holding the tongue behind the upper teeth. Take the deep breath in through your nose on the count of 4. Hold it on the count of 4. And exhale on the count of 8. And this can be repeated 4 or 5 cycles.
That is wonderful.
It feels absolutely wonderful.
And that can be done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be done anywhere, right?
Anywhere, anytime. If you're on the subway having a panic attack, if you're feeling stressful after a long day and altercation with your manager, all you do is close your eyes and you become aware of your breath and you start counting.
And I want to make sure again that the listeners really, really, really heard that first of all, you're stressed when there are physical signs, not just the emotional and the mental sign, but the physical signs of a racing heart, having trouble catching your breath, having trouble with sleep and interrupted sleep. Those are things that maybe if you're not as aware of what's happening with your body, those are signs that you should really, lock down on and understand that when you see those, that's a sign that you're experiencing excessive stress. Correct. And this 4-4-8 trick that Dr. Kogan just taught us is something that can be done anywhere to help bring that stress response down, because we're not just trying to bring stress down for the sake of bringing stress down. We're trying to bring it down to make sure our hormones stay balanced and where they need to be for years to come. Your book, Dr. Kogan, The Diet Slave No More. I'm curious. You said it's not a diet book. Tell us a little bit about what that book is about.
Absolutely. This book examines why all the diets fail. And the reason that they fail, Dr. Taz, is, I believe, in my humble opinion, that they try to override our inner blueprint that we all have. We have these certain inborn tools that we have that deal with processing of the world and securing us, keeping us safe. And what the diets do is they're someone else's ideas of what's right. And what's right for someone else may not be right for us. So in the end, all these diets, they temporarily work, but at the end they fail and we wind up with more frustration and more weight than we started with. So my book is an attempt of identifying these inner resources that we have, trying to figure out what went wrong, and then trying to see what we can do to help ourselves on our own to restore ourselves back to the balance that we had when we were children, when we were born, because we were all endowed with this inborn perfection, perfect eating habits when we were babies. And,
so life and stress get in the way and they throw the internal thermometer off completely where we no longer know what to do. Is that sort of the idea?
Absolutely. It took us a lifetime of actually swaying from that perfection. It took us a lifetime of eating poorly, listening to someone else's idea of what's right for us, large portions, wrong times, skipping meals, all of these things. And so it is us who have to do it on our own to go back to our original perfection, to restore our balance.
Well, I love that. So I encourage my listeners, Diet Slave No More by Dr. Kogan. Pick it up and maybe help yourself reestablish what it is that you really are supposed to be eating and when to eat, and how stress is often at the root of a lot of different hormonal imbalances.
Absolutely. And one of the things I did, Dr. Taz, is just to add to what we spoke about, reading the book would certainly be a first step, and the second step would be to download a very cool app that I created together with my 16-year-old daughter. And that helps you to carry out all the steps. And also created a free group on Facebook for discussion for those people who have any questions.
Fantastic. And we didn't even have a whole lot of time to get into bioidentical hormones. Tell me what you think of bioidentical hormones. I'm always curious what different, practitioners feel about them.
Absolutely. Bioidentical hormones are a wonderful thing for certain women who don't have any contraindication to using them. They don't have any family history of any breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer. They don't have any history of deep vein thrombosis and early strokes and heart attacks. So for those women who are going through a severe menopause with severe hot flashes and very, very bad vaginal dryness, and none of this, let's say, is amenable to herbal approaches, food approaches, lifestyle changes. Let's say we tried all of those things and they failed. There are some patients like that. So for those patients, bioidentical hormones applied topically under close monitoring are a good option.
All right, good idea. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, wonderful. So you and I are in agreement about that as well. We use bioidentical hormones also in practice, but they're with a lot of thought and with a lot of careful planning and monitoring. Dr. Kogan, it's been wonderful. I myself want to learn more about your perspective to stress and our hormones and just taking care of our bodies. If you want to learn more about Dr. Kogan, definitely connect with her. She's on Twitter at Dr. Sveltlana Kogan. That's Dr. Sveltlana Kogan. I hope you guys all enjoyed listening to her. Dr. Kogan, for all the great listeners out there and for all the women who are in a superwoman role and trying to really do their best, let's leave them with one last and final tip from you. What would you tell them all?
Oh, you're wonderful. I'd like women to know that they possess all the tools to be able to be happy, to restore their body and mind back into balance that they deserve and that they were born with. Balance and happiness are your birthright.